Priorities.
Well,
We're not, okay, great. All right, I'm gonna call to order. This is actually we're calling it a Dewey Avenue Alley Abandonment Committee. So whenever we, in this case, the reason we're here, and there's an attachment for those who are following online or other who want to look at this later. This was formed, one of the adjacent residents had requested pave a section of the unimproved alley, which is off of Dewey there. So the three of us were fortunate enough to be appointed to consider whether this is, what we're charged with is whether this is essentially beneficial to the city to, in this case, abandon the alley. Is that anything more to add to that?
Yeah, it's kind of broad what your purpose here is. It's if it's in the benefit of the city to go forward. Yeah.
It's fair to say that by the city, we mean the city as a corporate body, but also the residents of the city, right? Those affected by this action, correct?
Right. You could consider anything with a normal street change, such as far as stormwater or traffic access, pedestrian access.
So with that, I do know that we've had one other previous meeting where we just kind of framed out our criteria. I know that we've had each the opportunity to do a field study and get, consider it. The thing we haven't had, I know that there are folks in attendance today, and I don't know if there are also folks online. Jamie, are you able to? Okay. Does anyone care to address, to make a statement or add anything contextually to that's here today? Feel free.
Well,
and if you do, come on forward and just give us your name and just generally you could say I'm from Lewis if you know.
No, that's okay. My name is Cindy Miller, and I actually own the property that is adjacent along the side of the alley.
Okay.
where the fence is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I kind of was just brought into this, didn't realize there was a council meeting today, but I was glad I was available to come just to kind of find out what's going on. Because originally I had heard that they were requesting to have it paved. And so I kind of don't know where it's gone from there. It sounds like the city wants to abandon the property or make it available for sale, or what exactly is happening.
Essentially, those things would be, if we decided that it would be in the best interest of the city, to abandon it, then we would have the option of selling or maybe providing a long-term lease, those kinds of things. But absent that, the city would still be responsible. So in the case of where the neighbors are asking for it to be paved, we'd have to consider that because it's an asset of the city and we're responsible for maintaining streets, and in this case alley is broadly part a street in the case of maintenance. So if we decide that it's not in the interest of the city, we would need to look at that because there may be a need to indeed to pave it and improve it and make sure that so there's those things are really what's at stake here.
Okay, and as an adjoining property, the only thing I've only owned that property for 4 years, but I have noticed that it's never had any maintenance done on it. It's kind of been left up to the neighbors. But the other thing, a concern for me is just emergency vehicle access. There is a garage at the end of the alley. There is the back end of our properties. And also, if I ever wanted to take that fence down and be able to drive into that and park in my backyard or any of the other adjoining properties,
because you don't have it. I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller. You don't have a separate driveway, correct? So I
have street.
So that, right, yeah, street parking, and that alley would provide a driveway and an opportunity for you to create a driveway.
Yes, if I chose to.
If you chose to. Right.
And I understand the people that lived there before me, that's what they did use.
Oh, they came in off the alley and turned into the backyard.
Yeah, that's what I've been told by neighbors.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Do you have an issue as a neighbor? Because I think one of the issues was also that there may be some consideration of use by some children there. Do you have any concern as a neighbor for their safety if they were to use the alley as a safety concern as a neighbor?
No, none at all, because it's not a throughway. Okay. And they're right now, currently, the residents are the only ones that use that driveway.
Right.
Is the gravel in the driveway fairly new? It looked like it was pretty new.
You mean in the alley?
On the alley, yeah.
Right.
I've been there 4 years and it has always looked like it does now.
Okay.
Right.
And I don't know.
May I ask another question? Do you have experienced any kind of drainage related effect from that
No,
alley?
not into my yard at
Not
all.
into your yard, so you're
No.
not experiencing flooding or puddling or anything like that?
No, not ever.
Okay,
Yeah, it's been, and there's a big sewer grate right at the end of the alley.
right, on Dewey Avenue.
On Dewey Ave, which
Right.
is right in front of my property. But yeah, takes care of a lot of water.
Uh-huh,
But yeah, I've never had any wetness or puddling in my yard at all.
okay. Very good.
I appreciate you.
That's very helpful. Thank you for coming.
I had a question.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Hi, Siobhan here. Can you hear me?
Hi, good afternoon. My name,
One second, can we, I think Siobhan, yeah, if you wanna.
Yeah.
Say it, we'll hear it from.
Just, wait,
Siobhan, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. I just want to jump in and clarify that we did not bring this up as our idea for this abandonment. All we've asked for from the start was if we were able to pave it.
No,
And
no,
just to fill in, yeah,
Easy.
but just for everybody, I want to make sure we're all on the same page because of course I don't want to worry anyone that we're gonna buy this alley and then build a house, a shed there or something and people can't use it. So I'm just clarifying that. I don't want any, weirdness. So I'm just clarifying that this was brought up by the city in response to the worry of what could happen if we do pave it. And like, we're just assuming that if we pave it and you worry about the water drain off, then it's your responsibility and you could get in trouble for that. So we know that that's where this is coming from. And I just want to go back to the very first question was just that we wanted to pave it for bicycle access and to get rid of some of this gravel and to help the maintenance that we have been doing because otherwise it would be completely outgrown. And in fact, we just had coastal landscaping out a few weeks ago who did the weeding. And I just want to go back to the original question was just for the paving. And I had one more thought. Oh, that's why we put in all the work in the springtime to having the engineers come out 2-3 times. I had a few meetings that we came up with the conclusion of how to take care of the drainage. So I'm just putting it out there I'm not really this, it's all now we have committees and more meetings and things like that. But I just want to get back to the basic that's how this all started.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan.
hi, my name's Sherry Mitchell and my family's lived on Dewey Avenue for over 100 years.
Wow.
And I'm in the house there now.
Which
My-
house?
130, it's behind the Singh House. If you come in from Kings Highway, it's the second house on the left. It's beside Margie Turner.
So you're across the street from this alley, is that
Yeah.
correct?
It's
Okay.
it's always been a dirt alley. When the Bryans, Arthur and Margaret Bryan owned the house, the house where the doctor has back there, the ones that paved back there by the garages, they own that. Because once a year, and this is what I've heard because I, lived there and heard them, they used to block that off for 3 or 4 days every year because supposedly they own that alley and to have it, they had to block it off.
Oh,
How best my husband said used to do it to someone on his property, but when they left, no one blocked it off. It's never been blocked off
Why did they block it off?
because they owned it.
Oh.
But
well, they
that was
thought they
back
owned it.
in the 50s.
Sure. But
I
they-
mean, they passed away, and there's been many people back there since who have not blocked it off.
okay,
because-
so they must have thought they owned it, but it's on our maps as a public
Yeah.
alley.
Unless,
right?
yeah, I thought they said if you didn't block it off, then the town owned it. That's what they said back in the 50s.
Back in the
part of
day.
the legal-
Back in the 50s,
Yeah.
But anyway, the Downses, where Cindy lives, the fence wasn't up there. He always parked his truck in the back. And then that Brian's house was back there. In fact, he used to have horse stalls back there when I was growing up. Then the two other houses that face, the one on the end, and the Turner, Terry, no, that's not right. Thornburgs, the Thornburgs that have that little garage on the end. That doesn't, but the house in the middle, before the person that bought it and absolutely used it for a storage place,
Right.
it was two apartments, and they had off that, they would park back there, off the street parking.
So they used to park like in the backyard of that that was made into a duplex.
Yes,
Is
you
that
could
what
park.
you're saying?
So it was the Downses and the Bryans, and I don't know who owned that, but the two people that parked it. So that's how it used to be.
Right.
So what
Many.
you're saying is that it really is an access point for
All of those
Yeah.
for off the street parking.
Yeah,
Yes,
and that
it
makes
is.
sense.
Yes, it is.
bridge, yeah.
Okay.
May I ask you a question,
Yes.
since you and your family have lived
Uh-huh.
there as long as you have?
Uh-huh.
At any time, did that alley cut through to the other street or to connect to anything
It's
else?
funny, I thought about that the other night. It never did. It never did when I was.
Okay,
But there is a house there, a little cottage. I think if you went right back, there's a little cottage there. But that belonged to the Clogs.
do you know these people?
And I think it was empty at one time, and I think that little house was built there. But that belonged to the Clogs, the Lowe's. Ella Jean Lowe has that, and her family was the Clogs, and they had that as a summer place. So,
Thank you. That is really
Yeah.
interesting. I appreciate that history.
yes, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And my great uncle who lived in the house I am was the longest lightkeeper on Harbor Refuge.
Is that right?
Yes.
And was he a Mitchell as well?
He was a tailor, Robert C. Taylor, and his family lived over on the beach, the Taylors. So you live here long enough, things change, but the history
stays
still
the same.
stays. Yeah, it does.
Well said, Ms. Mitchell. Okay, so,
Thank you for the math. Yeah.
so does anyone from the table want to make a suggestion of how, whether this is, how to move forward?
Well, my question was, are there any other alleys in the city that we don't pave? Just to kind of get a context of it, because there was a request.
Oh,
to
yeah.
pave it.
Certainly on Lewis Beach.
And we also have
Yeah.
an example I could cite right here off of West Fourth Street, opposite the BB paved parking lot on the hospital side of Fourth Street. On this side of Fourth Street, there is an unpaved alley. It runs from Fourth Street all the way down to, I think it's Orr Street,
Mhm.
or in that direction.
I think
And
we want to separate the
it's-
two things though, right, Alex? Like, we're not talking about whether or not we should improve. I think at this point, the conversation should be centered around the benefit or not of abandoning
Correct.
it to the city. right?
Correct.
And then if we say no and keep it at the city, then we can have that.
Right.
follow-up
And then it
discussion.
becomes a maintenance question of what
Correct,
commitment we want to
correct.
make to that. And I agree with that.
It seems to me that knowing all this now, we've done our due diligence. It seems like there are too many people that can be impacted if we return the alley at just one person.
Correct. And Shaban, as she articulated, is not looking for, I don't think that's Shaban's
Correct.
goal either, or her family's
Right.
goal either.
No.
It's just, if it's the city's, in what way should we be maintaining that?
Right.
And, that's really the charge. And so I think, I'm hearing that it's best for the city to retain the sort of
Right.
control of the.
In fact, I think it's a responsible thing for us to do because we have adjacent property owners who might have a need in the future
Correct.
for access to have, to
Correct.
that alley.
Yeah, and as
And
Ms.
therefore
Mitchell
it's serving
stated,
its purpose.
it's, you have to consider the future
Yeah.
of who will live there as well. It's not
Correct.
just who's there now and how they'll use it, but,
Right.
So we've kind of made that decision, but it wouldn't really be fair to have one of the people pave the alley if we wouldn't. That wouldn't be fair for them to bear that expense. So then the question becomes, we've had the engineering study and we kind of know we have to stay away from that one garage on the side so we don't cause a drainage problem. Is it something that the city should take on to pave that? And what would the cost be?
May I respond to that?
Yeah.
I would suggest that what we need to do is, rather than commit to, at this time, paving the alley,
Okay.
is to explore other options. Just rather than the paving the width and the length of that alley, that we need to explore other options. And that might be some part of paving, but not the entire, committing to the entire width and length of the alley
So
to paving.
are you thinking,
Does that make sense?
well, I'm not sure, but are you thinking that we want to try some of these semi-permeable
Oh, it could.
surfaces rather than the non-permeable, or?
I'm thinking of anything and all options that we have available to us. Yesterday, you and I were on site. It was just the fortune really of meeting Dr. Park at that time. And he described his and his family's desire and needs. And it was what I consider a very reasonable and modest expectation that was expressed. And that is the idea of basically constructing, if you will, the path that a normal vehicle would travel over, that would be paved, and that could be paved with concrete, with asphalt, with pavers. But the whole width and length of the alley would not be, especially the width, would not be
You said
paved
he only needed enough
for the
width
track
for
of the
a
car.
for the track of his car.
Right. And so, that's, it's an option that we have.
Sure.
And there are other options available to us too that, that we need to explore.
So how,
The critical thing is our recommendation to council would be that I think this is what we're moving towards, is that we would not be interested in disposing of this alley, that we want to maintain ownership of the alley and control that alley. And we will seek other
Is it right to say that
solutions.
there was already an engineering study done for this?
Yeah, that was done a couple months ago related to I believe the drainage piece of it. Isn't that correct?
Hi, can you hear me? This is Siobhan.
Yes.
Yes, we had the engineers come out several times. I mean, I'm not sure when I brought up the question if we could pave our driveway, but I feel like we're going on close to a year now. And I brought that up initially, and understandably, the engineers had to come out, which they came out several times. They were very nice. And we came up with a plan that they agreed upon, how to avoid any water drainage concerns. And it was like you said, like my husband said yesterday, we would leave about 12 to 18 inches on either side of the driveway and dig that gravel a little deeper, ultimately making a French drain and just paving the really center portion, enough width of a car, down the middle of our driveway. As you probably saw yesterday, we have paved our portion of the driveway, the square part in front of the garage.
Right.
And we included what the engineers had asked for, which is the drain in front of the garage, the whole length of the garage, which drains into another French drain over towards the side. So we sort of anticipated just if we ever get approved for the whole length of the driveway, that knowing the lowest point of the driveways in front of our garage, the water's going to drain towards our garage. And so we made the changes that we had to ultimately hope that it could be paved. So the engineers have definitely come out several times many months ago.
did we have any kind of a price figure on the paving?
I mean, we do. I think the first meeting I asked if the city would consider paving it, and I was told probably not. So since then, I have not asked the city to pay to pave it. We already have a quote from Mackenzie Paving, who did the square portion, and we're very happy to pay for what the cost would be for them to do the length of the driveway if it's permitted, as well as digging the French drains on either side. So the whole payment issue, I'm not really sure why that keeps coming up, because we have not asked the city to do that in quite some time.
Do you have a figure on that?
It's about $2,000 to do the lengthwise, if I recall correctly.
Just cover, why don't we just cover the cost of that? or ask.
The engineering
to
already
do that.
paid for?
I
mean,
think we have two
there's a
different
design, right?
engineers involved here, don't we?
She's just
But-
talking about the contractor to do the actual work
Right.
that's been engineered. Yeah.
So I do think GMB has been out there. To what extent of the work they've done, I need to follow up with Charlie on
Okay.
that. I know they've taken measurements about how that alley is sloped, but.
I think what we're getting at though, is this something, if we say abandoning, that can be done administrative, it's under the threshold that could be done administratively if we say,
We're not talking about abandoning.
No, we don't want to abandon.
We're not abandoning.
no, I know that.
But
If we
you-
say we're not abandoning it, now maintain it, is is the cost such that we don't need council to
I
take
think,
the step of maintaining it?
I think we would need to get in contact with GMB and say, what are some estimates to do different
Yeah.
materials?
Okay.
Right.
Paving versus maintaining the way it is and we just pull the weeds, or doing something more.
Is there a
purpose.
reason we can't use the same contractor that they used for the back part of it, since they already kind of know what's there and they've have estimates, instead of having,
I think today what we should do is simply, I don't even know, are we in a good place how this was posted to take action to say that it's not a good
It's
idea?
just noticed as a discussion.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the
Um,
problem. So
and then-
we're gonna need
All we
it.
can do is make a recommendation at the end of the day.
So
Yeah.
the charter says, section 34, that within 90 days of the appointment of this committee, it issues a report to the mayor and council, which is a larger
Yeah.
group of you all. And that report shall contain the advantages and disadvantages to the city caused by changing the street.
Okay.
So I believe this was the August meeting of the council that this committee was appointed. Was that the 14th of August?
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be approximately November 13th.
Right.
A report would be due to the mayor and city council from this committee.
And in
making its
doing that, we could
recommendations.
say in that report that this committee did not recommend abandonment.
Absolutely, yeah, you have a lot of
Okay, but we don't
flexibility
need to take
here.
a vote on that. It's consensus wise, or do we need to take a vote on that in this committee?
I think a vote would be a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, let's just simply keep it at that, and then we can also, in our November meeting then, make the agenda point abandonment and then discussion of next steps. And that way we can then decide, like, are we relying on the existing engineering and GMB and move forward with that? Do we are ask for new engineering, et cetera? Are we
Okay.
good with that as,
All right, so right now you're calling for a vote, is that right?
simply on the abandonment?
On the
Yeah,
abandonment.
we're not in a position to really
Okay,
recommend. on-
and so do you need a motion
Yeah.
for this? You need a motion, okay. I move that we not approve the abandonment of the Dewey Avenue alley.
Okay, so that's a clean enough, enough motion. Okay, so you got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need a roll call on that, Alex, in your mind, or maybe since we're building a
Since
report?
it is
Yeah,
land, yeah.
It's probably helpful anyway. You want to go first, Tim?
Sure. Yes, I recognize the common public, well, the access to this alley remains a public need. And that's represented by it remaining an alley. I believe that it should be a right of way that provides access to the adjacent property owners for their use. Property owners who are adjacent to the alley.
I agree with that, and I want to add to that, by leaving this alley open, we give the neighbors an option to provide off-street parking. And we know what a problem parking is, so that would be a good thing to be able to maintain off-street parking for 1, 2, 3 residents. So
Yeah, 3 different addresses, actually,
Right.
really, right?
three
Yeah.
addresses.
Right.
So for that reason, I think we need to maintain that alley, keep it.
Okay,
And I too vote yes for the reasons and also for the consideration that the decisions you make not only affect those that are in the situation presently, but also in that situation in the future. So
Right.
that needs to be considered. So I think that's 3.
So do we now need to prepare a written report? We'll need to prepare a written statement to
Yeah,
council.
the charter isn't clear whether it's oral or written.
Right.
Written might be safer to
Yeah,
do. And
we'll do
so-
that.
I wonder
I'll
if we
do
could
that.
rely, also hopefully with the work of Jamie could hasten maybe the minutes to,
Is-
as part of that report, if that's, well, theoretically, this should be available, as
We
part
just
of that.
volunteered you, Jamie.
Yeah. Okay. All right, with that being said, any other, comments before we make a, call for adjournment?
Well, I guess the next step then is we're going to bring this up. The report will go to council
On the 13th.
and on the 13th, then we'll discuss the viability of how we want to,
Right.
what our steps will be.
All right, with that
Good.
being said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too, Ms. Mitchell.
Hey, thanks for coming out.